So I studied Mandarin for about a month, and then I actually went to Taiwan and I spoke a ton of Mandarin there. So I'm going to be breaking down in this video how exactly that experience went, things that I learned, and if the routine that I actually implemented to learn Mandarin actually ended up helping me in real life. So the primary thing that I did in terms of learning Mandarin was memorizing phrases. That comes with a lot of pros and cons. I think that a lot of the pros outweigh the cons, but it really did hit. Now, in my last video, I explained that my biggest hurdle was probably going to be not understanding, because when you memorize phrases, you're only able to say a set amount of things, and you haven't had the immersion and the input to really allow you to understand a ton of language back, right? And so oftentimes what I had encountered was I would say a set phrase to them, and I couldn't obviously control what they would say back. So they're not saying set phrases back to me, they're just saying whatever they want back. And this is where you encounter the dichotomy of Mandarin speakers, right? There's two types of like native Mandarin speakers. There's type A, who wants to use English at all costs and will never use Mandarin. So I'll speak to them in Mandarin, and obviously I have like an accent and everything, and they can tell that I'm not Chinese, right? And so, or Taiwanese. And they would literally just continue using English. No matter how much I tried to use my Mandarin, they would not stop using English, right? So that was like type A. And then type B was the opposite. They would just exclusively use Mandarin. And no matter how much I didn't understand, they would just continue to use Mandarin. And I would kind of get lost in the sauce. So that was the kind of dichotomy, right? It was never an in-between. It was so rare to find somebody who would like adjust. It was always the one of the two, which is kind of weird. I find that like with Vietnamese, it's always like they adjust to like the natural level. So if my Vietnamese is better than their English, then we talk in Vietnamese. And if their English is better than my Vietnamese, then we'll talk in English. But I find that like with in Taiwan at least, it was like a very like much a dichotomy, which was kind of funny. But what really helped me though was in terms of memorizing phrases, because when you memorize phrases, you end up inevitably learning like keywords, right? Like one big one was mayo, or I don't even know if I'm saying it right anymore. Mayo. I don't remember. I don't remember the tones. I completely like all the Mandarin that I learned is like almost gone. I think it's like mayo, something like that, which means like we don't have. I think yeah, mayo. I think that's how you say it. Whatever. It means I don't have, right? Or we don't have. And so oftentimes I would ask for something in Mandarin, and then I would hear like this very complicated response of them explaining why they don't have it, but they would just say "mei yo," and then I would understand, okay, they don't have it. So there's a lot of like key words like that, which really helped me like understand general messages, which was very good for like understanding obviously what people were saying. Another thing that I mentioned in previous videos would be a factor, but I underestimated the extent to which it would be a factor, was my nervousness. Like specifically when I was recording. Like at first, like my first day, I was like nervous to use Mandarin. I didn't even record any footage on my first day. I was just nervous to use the Mandarin that I had been practicing. After that, I had became kind of comfortable using Mandarin in the day-to-day, like ordering food, all that stuff. But then when I put the glass, so I use these like goofy glasses to record. Look at this. Like, bro, who's gonna take me seriously with these, right? Like, I look stupid. So I like was using these goofy glasses to record, and what makes it even worse is that when I actually start recording, a light comes to indicate to people that I'm recording. So I have this like these goofy thick glasses with this light coming, and I'm already nervous to speak Mandarin. Now I'm speaking Mandarin like this. So I was pretty nervous and uncomfortable doing it. I'm glad that I did it though, because it really put me out of my comfort zone, which I think it's always good to get out of your comfort zone. But yeah, I was super nervous, which led to me speaking like actual nonsense sometimes. I'll play a clip right now where I'm kind of just goofing up.
你好，我要这个，一杯这个一个一个一共多少钱？40。意大利面。你好，我要香杯黑咖啡，热的，热的，呃这个我要我要香杯抹茶拿铁加燕麦奶。也是热的吗？热的。也是这个大小吗？这个大小。所以你总共有6杯饮料，是吗？好。是吗？你是3杯中杯热美式，Americano drink。OK。 Oh, one. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, one. Yeah.
So I said xiangbei instead of xiaobei, which basically is just it's nonsense, right? Like I basically just spoke nonsense. And then if you notice in the clip, when she spoke back to me in like rapid speed Mandarin that I didn't understand, I paused for a second and then I just said how, which basically means just like okay, like it's pretty awkward and bad, but overall I found that it was pretty par for the course and something that you should expect when you just go to the country only memorizing phrases, right? Like this is why people say like phrase books are useless when you're trying to learn a language, which is partially true. I'd agree with that. But the thing is, I'm not trying to learn Mandarin here. I'm trying to learn like survival Mandarin, right? And phrase books and memorized phrases are extremely useful in that context. One thing that I really learned from this experience is this concept I'm going to call language maturity. And I find that even when, like, because for example, for me with Mandarin, I was studying for about an hour a day, right? And the phrases I had like really memorized them, but when it came to me actually saying them in the moment with the pressure on, background noise, all this stuff, I would make errors, right? Even though I would never make those errors when I'm just in my room drilling it, right? And in Vietnamese, a lot of the time, like the things that I have down, I won't mess them up, like pretty much no matter what, right? The things that I really have down. And so I realized that there comes a certain point where your language kind of ages like fine wine, and there's certain things that just become down and you just won't mess them up. And I thought like I had those same feelings of the things that I really had chorused and memorized with Mandarin. I had those same feelings of like, yeah, I got it down, but I just don't have the time under my belt to really like actually have them down, and they're still prone to error just because like it's still not really baked into your long, deep term memory, if that makes sense. I feel like there's obviously short term memory, which is like you're going to forget it in a couple days, right? And then there's like I guess my language was in medium term memory and not really in long term memory like I thought it was. So that was kind of like interesting. And I want to explore this concept of language maturity a little bit further and kind of like reflect on it more once I have more experience with it under my belt. But that's just kind of what I was able to notice in that moment. And I think one of my favorite aspects of the trip, like language wise, was when I started to exit Taipei. Like we were in Taipei in a lot of like the touristy areas for most of the time, but a couple days we actually left Taipei and went to less touristy types of areas. And the Mandarin in those areas, should I say the English in those areas, was substantially worse than the English that's in like the main hubs of Taipei, right? And so I found that like people in those areas would never use like any English. So some people would, but like a lot of them would just never use English. And even when I tried to use English, they would continue to use Mandarin, right? And so I was forced to kind of use my Mandarin. And in those moments is when I really felt grateful for having understood Mandarin. I remember like I went to this like tea place and I had to ask if there were certain seats available, and I didn't know how to like really articulate the kind of seat that I was looking for. Like I wanted like a balcony type of window seat. I didn't know how to say that, but I pointed at the seat and I asked like, "Oh, do you have seats available?" And I pointed at the specific type of seat that I wanted. And we were able to kind of bumble through the conversation. And if I had never like really studied Mandarin, then I would have had to use Google Translate, which I mean, I don't know. As somebody who loves language learning, I find that really painful to have to do. Like, I will say, like, I pretty much never use Google Translate for the entirety of my Taiwan trip, which I'm pretty proud of. But like, I find it painful to do that, and I'm glad that I didn't have to do that. I'm glad that like we were able to kind of bumble our way through a Mandarin conversation. Again, using like the keywords and the things like that that I was able to memorize. So that was really cool. Another kind of funny story was I had asked somebody like in a cafe where the bathroom is, and because I kind of was betting on the fact that when I asked somebody where the bathroom is, they would point it out to me, and then I'd be able to figure it out from there, right? Like in Japan, that's what I did when I went to Japan last year. I would just ask where's the bathroom, and then they would point it, and so I didn't have to memorize like the word for right, left. Oh, go down this corner in the hallway, then take a right. I didn't have to know all that. All I had to know was like over there or something like that, right? And so I had asked this lady if I could, like, where the bathroom was, and she did not use any body language, entirely verbally starts explaining these complex instructions on how to get to the bathroom. And I'm just standing there, and, like, for some reason, I just didn't want to say that I couldn't understand her, so I was just nodding like an idiot. And then when she had stopped talking, I walked in the actual opposite direction of the bathroom, and she had to, like, call me back and walk me to the bathroom, which, I mean, it was funny, but at the same time, it's kind of cringe and painful. So I wish that I had just, well, first of all, I wish I had just like straight up told her I didn't understand and I didn't just like pretend to understand her. But I also wish I had like actually taken the directions thing like more seriously, and learned like basic direction finding and stuff like that. But overall, if I were to give a verdict on the experience of learning Mandarin in the way that I did, so I only spent 24 hours learning Mandarin, not like a day, but like 24 actual like hours spent with Mandarin over the course of a month. I was gonna do 30 hours in a month, averaging like an hour a day, but I tried to buy Wi-Fi on the plane to continue my studying, and it just didn't work. So I ended up going 6 hours short actually. So like less than an hour a day over the course of a month. Most people with that kind of time end up only knowing how to say like "hi, my name is" type of thing, right? Like they kind of like a lot of like the traditional language learning, like the apps and the class and the things like that, make you like really like they you have to put a substantial amount of time in them to get a return, and the time that most people put in, they basically get nothing out, right? Especially for like a trip, like a short-term thing like that. And so I feel like the way that I learned was highly optimized and highly efficient. And of course, like it could have been better. And I've already explained like multiple ways I could have tweaked it. But overall, I think it was a success. Like I was able to navigate conversations with people who didn't know any English. And there was like a lot of simple stuff that like a lot of simple one-liners that like I was really happy to be able to say in Mandarin, like asking for a bag, for example. I didn't have to like use English. I could just ask the store clerk in Mandarin for a bag, and it's just boom like that.
请问可以撕胶带吗？
I guess you could say a lot of like what I was doing in cafes, like the full order in a cafe was kind of like performative because most of like the baristas, especially at the touristy places I was going to, understand English, right? So it was kind of like more like for me than it was for them.
你好，我要中杯黑咖啡，热的。我要中杯拿铁 matcha，呃
所以中杯拿铁，然后 butter 吗？还是中杯拿铁？
matcha，
哦，matcha，哦
Yeah
，sorry。
可以加燕麦奶，
都要调整吗？那个糖。
微糖。
But there was a lot of instances where my Mandarin was actually able to serve the people that were serving me rather than just being for me to clip farm or something like that. So I would say that what I did was totally worth it, and it was pretty much like a 10 out of 10, right? Like over the course of 24 hours, you can't really ask for better than the results that I got. So I'm super happy I did what I did. And I would highly recommend like anybody who has watched this whole playlist and they ever consider doing anything like what I did in the future, I would highly recommend implementing it. It was like super rewarding. So that's about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this like series that I did with Mandarin. I think it was really fun and pretty educational as well. I'm not going to touch Mandarin for a long time. I'm actually working on another language, which I will update you guys on next week. All right. Thank you for watching.